all right. You just tell me one and we'll go. I have the order that she sent me here of this, but I mean.
Can I airdrop you?
Yeah. You need my or
just change it to everyone.
All right. Can you show me how to do that?
Yeah, you just swipe down Control Center, press and hold, and airdrop.
Oh, the airdrop. Yeah. All right.
I'm gonna assume it's iPhone 49.
Could be.
Let's see. Okay, it probably doesn't. I'm gonna assume it's this iPhone. There.
That's me. Thank you. All right.
And that is the order that has the verses. The regular ones are just doing all the verses.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
No? Test. Will it work? Yes. That's the question.
Oh, that one's on. Do I just have to turn it on? Oh, it's on.
Are they not powered on? Yeah, okay.
This one's on.
Yeah.
It's like goofy. It's like you have to hold it for a little bit and then release. And then
Otherwise, it just turns
it just turns out.
And then, wait for the action. It's fine.
Happy Sabbath for the last little bit that we have. We are going to start off Vespers tonight with a couple of songs. Our first one is Give Me Oil in My Lamp. We are going to sing 4 verses. Give me oil in my lamp, and then make me fisher of men. Give me wax for my board, then one more time, give me oil in my lamp.
Give me oil in my lamp, keep me burning. Give me oil in my lamp, I pray. Give me oil in my lamp, keep me burning. Keep me burning till the break of day. Sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna to the King of Kings. Sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna to the King. Make me a fisher of men, keep me seeking. Make me a fisher of men, I pray. Make me a fisher of men, keep me seeking. Seeking souls till Jesus comes again. Sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna to the King of Kings. Sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna to the King. Give me wax for my board, keep me surfing for the load. Give me wax for my board, I pray. Give me wax for my board, keep me surfing for the load. Keep me surfing till the break of day. Sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna to the King of Kings. Sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna to the King. Give me oil in my lamp, keep me burning. Give me oil in my lamp, I pray. Hallelujah. Give me oil in my lamp, keep me burning. Keep me burning till the break of day. Sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna to the King of Kings. Sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna, sing Hosanna to the King.
Our next song is Come Thou Fount. It is number 334 in the hymnal. Yes, 334.
Come thou fount of every blessing, my heart to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. Teach me ever to adore thee, may I still thy goodness prove, while the hope of endless glory fills my heart with joy and love. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I've come, and I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Jesus sought me when a stranger, wandering from the fold of God. He to rescue me from danger interposed his precious blood. Oh, to grace, how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let thy goodness like a fetter bind me closer still to thee. Proud to wander, Lord, I feel it, prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it for thy courts above.
The next song is Amazing Grace. It is number 108 in the hymnal again. 108, Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see.
Verse 2.
'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed.
Verse 5.
When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the
Our next song will be from the He's Our Songbook, number 139, Give Me Oil in My Lamp.
Peace like a river. And if you know the motions, I'm sure Grandma Barb does, so you can always watch her. And Lincoln. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. Now all three. I've got peace like a river, I've got love like an ocean, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got love like an ocean, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul.
Thank you, Andre and Tegan and Troy and Jonathan, for leading us in song this evening. That was a blessing. And thank you to each one of you for being here. This has been a really wonderful Sabbath, hasn't it? We had Sabbath school and church, a baptism, fellowship lunch. Pathfinders and adventurers met this afternoon. We're here for a Vespers and business meeting, and then we get to go downstairs, and I don't know what we're going to get down there, but it's a mystery to me, but I'm looking forward to it. Definitely am. You know, as we continue this evening, let's just pause for a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you that you've invited us back into your house to conclude the worship service or the Sabbath hours today. We ask that you would bless as we spend some time thinking about you, talking about mission as a church family, and enjoying time socializing together. In Jesus' name, amen. I want to share with you 3 short stories and a Bible verse, and then we'll transition to our business meeting. And there's a theme here with the Bible, or with the stories in the Bible verses as well. Walter Cronkite, maybe some of you remember him. Walter Cronkite was a well-known anchor, I think for CBS, if I remember correctly. And so he was a well-known figure in America, and he and his wife were sailing down the Mystic River in Connecticut one day, and a group of kids went speeding past them in a motorboat, and they were waving wildly and shouting. And Walter Cronkite was happy that they recognized him, and he waved and shouted a cheery hello back to them. And his wife said, "Walter, do you know what they were saying?" And he said, "Well, of course. They were saying, 'Hello, Walter.'" And she said, "Oh, no. They were saying low water, low water." See, they were in a sailboat, and low water. There's a theme here. You'll catch it. The next one, George Washington Carver, the well-known scientist and the founder of, I think it was the Tuskegee Institute. And he was well-known for coming up with 1,000,001 products that you can make from the peanut. And he recounts how, as a young man, he asked God, he said, "God, tell me the mystery of the universe." But God answered, "That knowledge is reserved for me alone." So George responded and said, "Well, God, tell me the mystery of the peanut." And God said, "George, that's more nearly your size." And so he did. Some years back, a former baseball great, I don't know how great he was, I'd never heard of him until I read this story, Ralph Kinner. Does that name ring a bell for anyone? Okay, we're all youngsters, aren't we? This was years ago. He played for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and one season he set a record 37 home runs. And he led the league, actually, in home runs that year. And that was before the years of steroids and Barry Bonds and so forth. And so he went to his manager, and he said, I'd like a raise. I led the league in home runs. I think I'm deserving of a raise. And his manager refused. And he said, but I led the league in home runs. And his manager said, yes. And how did we finish the season as a team? And he says, well, dead last. He says, we can lose without you. Did you catch a theme in those three stories, those three illustrations? Didn't catch the theme? Oh, no. Well, the theme I was driving at was humility. Humility. Walter Cronkite was thinking, I'm a famous man. They're saying, hello, Walter. And they were saying, low water. George Washington Carver, he was exemplifying a little bit of humility there. God, he said, of course, this was an imaginary conversation with God, show me the mysteries of the universe, but are we big enough to know the mysteries of the universe? No, but God said, yeah, peanut. That's about your size, George. I could let you figure out a peanut. And then, of course, the baseball great, supposedly, Ralph Kenner, and his team could lose without him, even if he led the league in home runs. Humility. We need humility, don't we? We need humility in so many areas of our lives, but I think especially we need humility when it comes to talking about the most important things in life. And the mission of our church, of God's church, spiritual matters are incredibly important. And so as we talk about the mission of our church, the business of God's church, we need to approach those conversations with a little bit of humility, a recognition that we need God's guidance. We need His insight. And our brilliant ideas, well, they somewhat pale, don't they, next to the brilliance of God's wisdom. In James chapter 1, James writes, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. We need God's wisdom. As we spend some time this evening talking about the business of God's church, reviewing how God has blessed with the stewardship of our congregation, the finances of God's church, and then looking at how that enables us for continued ministry moving forward, we need God's wisdom. As we talk about ideas for expanding our ministry capacity through the More Than Bricks project, we need God's wisdom as we seek to know how to move forward. As we talk about affirming and supporting Adventist education, we need God's wisdom. That doesn't mean, of course, that we shouldn't contribute, because one of the great ways that God helps to guide, direct, and express His will in the context of a faith community is by you sharing what God has laid on your heart. And so as we discuss the business of God's church this evening, we need to hear your voice. Brief comments. We don't have a lot of time, right? There's a mysterious dinner waiting for us downstairs. But we have enough time to talk about the items that we have on our agenda for today. So as we transition into our business meeting, I'd like to invite you to stand up with me and turn to the person next to you and say, I'm not very wise. And then say to the person next to you, but God is very wise. Excellent. Okay, so we've got the right perspective now. You can go ahead and sit back down. One of our first items we need to tend to as we're in the business meeting section of our time together this evening is approving the minutes from our last meeting. We have minutes sitting on the AV booth in the back. There's a stack of them. And I would encourage, maybe if somebody would be willing to stand up and just kind of pass those out. that would be great. A Pathfinder, oh, excellent. Yeah, say Pathfinders. Yeah, why don't you guys run back there and grab them? About one per family would be good. I don't know if we have enough for everyone to have their own copy of the minutes from last business meeting, but we have enough for one per family, and you can have a chance to glance through those minutes. And we'll go ahead and we'll affirm those minutes, vote to accept those minutes. But of course, first you have to have those minutes and have an opportunity to look at them. While those are being handed out, I'll just give you a preview of what we'll spend some time talking about today. First of all, we'll affirm our minutes. Chris Randall, our treasurer and leader of our finance team, will share with us a snapshot of the financial picture of Papa Adventist Church. And then, along with Heather Bergman, he'll lead us in affirming, reaffirming, provided it is the pleasure of us as a group this evening, reaffirming our Adventist Education Assistance Program, which provides financial support for the tuition of students who are attending Adventist schools from our congregation. And so that's an important item of business for us this evening. Then we'll have an update from our More Than Bricks campaign committee, which is also our Cornerstone committee, and Chuck Randall is going to help us with that aspect of it. And then we'll spend a few minutes talking about our theme as a church, what is our theme as a church this year? Right now it's pray, that's right. What's the big theme? Good, Jonathan, you're on track there. There's something every day. Yeah, thanks, Andre. The word every day, read, pray, share, grow. And we're focusing on each component of that, reading God's word every day, praying every day. Next is sharing every day. And so we'll spend some time talking about how we can continue to be engaged and be even more engaged in sharing Christ with our community. And that will wrap our time up together with our business meeting. I'd be happy if someone's willing who's had an opportunity to read through the minutes and would be comfortable making a motion that we accept the minutes from our last business meeting. Do we have someone here who's willing to make that motion? Thank you, Barb, for moving that. Is there a second? Barb evidently is the fastest reader here this evening. I know some are still reading through. Okay, we have a second. Thank you, Janelle. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Great. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, if you'd raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Chris, the time is yours. I'll invite Chris to come up and share a report of our finances as a church. And by the way, as he comes forward, if this happens to be your first time, or maybe your first time at a business meeting that you're paying attention, and wondering how do business meetings work, the business meeting is the time when we get together as a church and we make the most important decisions. So we have the church board, and they meet every month, and then they make decisions for us as a church. But the business meeting is the highest authority in the local congregation. I mean, God obviously is the highest authority, but in the governance of the church, the business meeting is. And so as a member, you're a full participant in the business meeting. So you should feel comfortable to ask questions, make comments. You can make motions, you can second motions, you can vote. And you have an opportunity to be fully engaged in our discussions this evening. So I encourage you to take advantage of that.
That this is the most boring thing even to tease someone about is finances. So accounting, budgets, I don't know, I'm already off to a bad start. This is the time of year, state of the whatever, right? State of the state address from our governor, state of the union address by the president. So this is kind of our opportunity as a church to have a state of the church. Where are we at? So we'll do some quick recap. Where are we, and where are we trying to go, and are we able to get there? I guess is just part of the purpose for this quick run through of our church finances. If you recall, we'll do some education and remembering too, right? Because accounting is not everybody's favorite thing. So church finances come in really three primary buckets that we talk about. Tithe funds the overall mission of the church, the structure, the paid employees, the pastor and evangelists, and all that entails. But the money that comes into our church, our local church for tithe, immediately goes to the Michigan Conference and then up through that structure and pays for the structure of the church, not our local mission, or not directly our local mission. The budget bucket is our family budget, how we achieve the impact that we're trying to achieve in this local community and in this local congregation. And then that third category is, we call them trust accounts, but it's a special projects, funds that are set aside for something specific, whether it takes us 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, those funds are set aside for a longer purpose, a longer special designation. So we just finished the calendar year 2022. Total giving for our church was down 12.7%. Just some interesting statistics, if you're interested. Our church falls into about a 75-25 rule. You've heard the 80-20. In our congregation, in our church family, about 75% of our funds come from about 25% of our membership, of our group. That's 30 giving units. Looking at this group, you're the active, engaged, you're here at a business meeting, you're supporting Pathfinders. You may not feel like it, but the odds are you're in that 30. We are supporting, we are funding the activities of our local church. As I look through that list, 7 out of that 30 are mostly participating remotely. So that's 25% of that core group, right? The core group that's funding the activities of the church are watching online and might show up on rare occasion, but they're 25% of that core group is worshiping with us remotely. This is the current budget. Our fiscal year runs September through August. So at our business meeting in August, this is the budget that they just took away. That we voted as a group. We're looking at having impact in these our core categories: learn, proclaim, belong, and worship. That budget was a slight reduction from the year before. The first 3 months, your treasurer's heart beats a little faster because we were not meeting it. December was over the top amazing as people catch up with their year-end giving. And so where we stand today in February, the end of January, 5 months into our fiscal year, we are meeting budget. We have the funds to fulfill this mission, this impact that we've set for ourselves. So I'm gonna come back, but I'm gonna switch now because we're meeting the budget, our giving goals. We would like to recommend and review the education policy, which is a significant portion of this budget. It fits in that learn category, $59,000 for our education plan. Do you want to talk through what?
So most of it, I would think most of the information is up there and it's in our minutes. Nothing has really changed. Again, most of the information was in that slide that Chris just had up, and also in our minutes from the meeting in August. We are supporting 20 kids. I think that we had some more through Worthy Student, but I'm not sure, Chris, if all of those students actually took advantage of that gift. And we're looking at approximately, it was around almost $59,000. And of course, we're midterm now. The kids have 2 months in now to their second semester. And I know that there's some very thankful families. Ours is one of them. And so I would move that we continue the education policy through the end of this fiscal year.
I'm not necessarily chairing, but you want me to take, all right. So from the Education Committee, and I think on behalf of Finance as well, we're recommending to continue the policy. That's not it. That's not it. Where did I put it? Here it is. This is the policy that we're voting to continue, right? For grades 1 through 8, towards 90% of the weighted average tuition. Grades 9 to 12, it's $2,000 per student. And it's for our membership that's actively engaged, actively participating. So they're an official member, they're regularly attending and actively participating. So that's been moved and supported. Is there other discussion on the policy?
I think, Chris, yes, this would be a good time if anyone has a question or a comment on that policy. We could quickly handle that. I know this isn't anything new to our congregation because it's been our practice for a number of years now to continue to reaffirm this policy. But does anybody have a question or a comment before we vote a reaffirmation of the policy? Okay, well, let's go ahead and vote that. All those in favor, a raised hand. Thank you. Anyone who's opposed? Same sign. That is carried. Thank you.
So in those buckets that we talked about, now, we're going to raise money downstairs for one of those buckets as the Pathfinders look forward to the camporee, now in Gillette. We don't call it Oshkosh anymore. Some of the other key components, we'll talk about Cornerstone in a moment. We launched that big fundraising drive 4 years ago this month with another dinner. We've raised $566,000 in those 48 months towards the Cornerstone project. The other two buckets, larger buckets, are reserves so that we can survive through a COVID downturn or through whatever else those kinds of things hit us. Fortunately, the heat this morning seemed to be short-term, but our replacement reserves enable us to replace equipment, replace parking lots and lights and roof and those kinds of things. So operating reserves, we have $109,000 in the reserve account, and our replacement reserve for the facilities and structures is $122,000 we have in reserves. One of the projects that we started talking about over a year ago was replacing the sign at the front entryway. The sign that we have now is over 12 years old. It's broken. It is a struggle to open that, change the lettering. We're missing lettering. And just getting volunteers to do that has been a challenge. We assigned a subcommittee to work on that last year. There were lots of hurdles, in part the fact that where the sign is now, actually this slide doesn't show it very well, but where the sign is now is actually in the right-of-way for the road and for MDOT. It's in the setback. We thought if we touched it, we were going to have to move it and start all over. John Steffen in particular, but Joe and others have been part of that. We have written approval from MDOT now to replace the sign where it is and not have to move it. So we're getting the quotes updated. This is the one that we have today. Would be to go to a digital sign. That's kind of the rendering, what it would look like with a person standing beside it. There it is in comparison to our current sign. The digital aspect would let us change the message remotely, let us change, you can have a series of messages, not one static message for the week or however long it sits up there. It's not inexpensive. The digital signage, this sign that we're looking at is a $44,000 investment. which is partly why we're bringing it back to this group to discuss and think about. The proposal, the concept is that we would pay for this out of replacement reserves. So we don't want to take money away from Cornerstone, because we're going to hear from that next. We certainly don't have it in the operating budget. But this, with $122,000 in replacement reserves and no roof or parking lot or major project that we see upcoming in the next few years, we think this could be funded out of replacement reserves. That mostly covers it. This is not I guess it could be, but it's not really intended. I'm not making a motion that we authorize this and move forward today. I think there's a little more conversation and discussion. We may want to get some of the other quotes updated and evaluate those. But I think we'd like your initial feedback, or are we on the right track, or do we want to veto this and not go there at all? I guess is kind of, we'd like to get some feedback from you. So that's the proposal on the table, not a motion, not an official vote, is to move forward down this path with a digital sign, likely to cost in the 40,000 plus number, and to fund that out of replacement reserves. And
Thank you, Chris, for highlighting that. And so this would be an opportunity for our church family to provide feedback. Is our committee headed in the right direction with exploring this option? Are there some concerns, some questions, some thoughts? Barb?
Do you know, or has anybody said anything about the operation of it, the cost of the operation? I think the digital is awesome. And it would be so much easier to maintain. So in that venue, I'm good with it. But I'm, wondering about the cost of operating the sign.
Great questions. Some of the sign companies that we looked at previously have an ongoing subscription fee. This company does not. The cost of the software is included in our initial package, and we get to continue using that. The electric use, even though this is going to a digital format, the lighting actually uses less wattage than what we have in our current sign. So even our utility bill might go down in that case. The other thing I meant to mention, they do traffic counts, and this road, 8,375 cars per month. You can take me off there so I can.
So while
8,375 vehicles per day is what they calculate, which is, you're potentially counting twice, because that's traffic going both ways. So somebody that drives from Lawton to work in Pawpaw, that's 2. Or if you go to the bank and come back, that's maybe 4, right? But that's 8,375 is the traffic count that they have assigned to that road.
Thank Barb. Joe, did you have a comment? No? Just raising your hand back there. Any other comments or questions? As Chris mentioned, we're not actually asking for a vote on that this evening, but kind of gauging, are we headed in the right direction? Maybe just as an interest's sake, how many of you think this is a positive thing that we're exploring of moving to a digital sign? Okay, so a fair amount of support for saying yes, this would be a good thing for our congregation.
Our church has been more involved in other ministries that utilize the church. For example, Feeding America. We do that a number of months throughout the year. With Pathfinders, we have activities with the church, also having different activities. And with the sign that we have right now, just getting the weekly signs up there can be a challenge, especially with the wind. I've done it a couple of times, and if the wind is really strong, the cover that is in front of it can just take it off and make things very difficult. So this sign, I see it. I don't not only see it as a communication piece, but also a ministry piece that can also enhance some of the ministries that we have. I will be comfortable with presenting a motion to move forward and get it done without having to wait for another step.
I think I don't think we're not thinking that we have to come back to business meeting next August. I think we're looking to gauge your feedback so that board could handle this at our monthly meetings, finance and board.
But Noel, you are in your right as a member to make a motion, and so if you do want to make that motion, that is fine. Even though we're not asking for a motion to approve this, you certainly can. And I think I heard you make a motion to say yes, let's move forward with this.
John Steffen would love you for that.
And so, is there a second to that motion? Mark is making a second. Okay. So now we do have a motion. And as I understand your motion, Noel, it isn't tied specifically to that one proposal that was on the screen for $44,000, but a motion to move forward with replacing the sign with a digital sign, entrusting the board to navigate through what would be the best option based on the recommendation of the committee that's exploring this. Is that in harmony with your motion? Excellent. Any comments or questions on that motion? Yes, Wesley. That's a very good question. How long would the sign last?
The current sign has lasted 12 years. And the part that's failing is the mechanical part, right? I think this sign, we should expect this sign to last 10 years plus.
Excellent question. So we have a motion on the floor, and that is to move forward with replacing the existing sign with a digital sign, empowering the church board to make the decision based on the recommendation of the committee of what would be the best approach and what proposal and bid to accept on that. All those in favor, a raised hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Same sign? Okay, that is carried.
I'm good.
Okay.
I think we're back to
Thank you, Chris.
Cornerstone.
Appreciate that. It's wonderful, even though we've gone through some uncertain years, right? The last few years with economic challenges in our wider society, uncertainty about what church life would look like just a couple years ago, just a year ago even. We're blessed that God is blessing through your faithfulness and stewardship of supporting financially the mission of our church. I want to invite Chuck to come forward. One of the ministry or expanding ministry opportunity and potentials that our church has been exploring for a number of years now is expanding our physical structure. And Chuck, along with Jim Birmingham, are the new chairs of the Cornerstone Committee, which is overseeing our More Than Bricks capital campaign project. And so Chuck is here to give us a little bit of an update on where that is, what we're looking at moving forward, and an action that we can take to support that endeavor this evening.
We have been interviewing an architectural firm to get us into the next phase. We are at the point where we want to do something. We can kind of see in the next year or two a possibility of being able to begin this project, but we don't have a viable plan at this point. And the architectural firm that we have talked to is Carmi. Jim Birmingham has done millions of dollars with them in school systems, and I just have 3 of those. So Jim highly recommends him. He's reluctant to be up here promoting this firm, but he's on vacation, so we'll do what we want to do. Our next step is we need to do a feasibility study. We don't know if by adding on we're going to have more bathrooms. We don't know if by adding on we're going to have to put in a fire suppression system. We don't know. We assume because the church is here that if we do soil borings, out here, it's going to be okay for us to build on it. But those are the kinds of details that we need to have. We don't want to design a plan that can't be done, or it has to be redone. So do this once and get it done right. So the cost to do that is $14,000. It could be just, I mean, if it's negative and they recommend that we not do anything on that spot, then we've spent $14,000. But if we go ahead with it becomes part of the 8% that they will be charging us for their fees. So that's where we are. I don't know, how many of you read the pastor's note that he sent out? Oh boy, pastor. Describing this whole thing. Didn't it go to everybody? Oh, it just went to the board. Oh, okay. Well, some of you are absolved from guilt. But that's where we are. $14,000 to get us through over the next threshold. Any questions?
So it wasn't clear to me anyway. Is there a time limit that the architecture firm is going to hold us to? Like, for instance, we pay the money up front now, and then there's some delay in actually moving forward, and 3 years from now we go, yes, we want to move forward, and they're like, well, that $14,000 was if you went forward in 18 months, not 30 months or whatever. So is there a time limit to actually continuing the project?
We have talked about, how fast or how slow this might be, and they are fully aware that it's going to take them some months to do this study. They'll come back and report to us. Hopefully we'll have some more money in the bank. But we actually need about $1.2 million to pull this all off. So, and then we can borrow $1.2 million so that we can we need over $2 million to do this project. But $14,000 is just a down payment, a small down payment.
Worked with another church that took 7, 8, 9 years.
Yes.
12 years. So they know, they understand.
They recognize.
Yeah, if you look at is it the Catholic Church that they did? That took them 7 or 8 years to do from beginning to end. So they know what they're getting into. Yes.
So to be able to actually start the building phase, we need to have a certain amount of money to get to the. So the 1.2 is so we can borrow the rest. Okay, so is that per union? The union, the Michigan union.
That's a church policy.
Oh, okay.
We need 50%, and then we get hopefully 50%, and then we hopefully get 10% back from the conference out of MAP funds.
Okay.
I don't know if there is any. I'm not that connected anymore.
One thing I'd like to highlight that we're at the early stages of this project, even though it's a project that we began to look at as a church a number of years ago and have been raising funds for. I don't know, Chuck, if you mentioned about how much we've raised. It's a little under $600,000, I believe, at this point, that have been raised for this project. Hiring an architecture firm will allow us to, as Chuck mentioned, do this feasibility study, and then they can begin to guide us in figuring out what we want to do, what it's possible for us to do, and how to most efficiently move forward in that process. So at this stage, we're not making a commitment to a $2.4 million building project. What we are saying is the recommendation is that we hire the architect, allow them to do the feasibility study, and then be able to move forward in that process of figuring out what we can do to continue to support the mission of our church through expanding our facilities.
Yes.
I apologize before I start, but years ago when we started this project, we said it's going to be $1 million, and everyone kind of took a deep breath and said, okay, let's move forward. And I think it was probably 12 months later, it was almost oh, by the way, it's a $2 million project, and we just kept going. Also, at that time, it was hard to get a seat in the sanctuary, and I haven't had that problem recently. Is there consideration? Is there any consideration being taken that the need has changed in the last 2 or 3 years, for whatever reason, pandemics, whatever, that maybe the need isn't so much, a bigger sanctuary and those kind of things? Is that being taken into account by the committee and the architects? And
well, there has been, that's been on our minds. That's a discussion that we've had more than once. The construction cost, I mean, Joe is our expert here, but construction costs have just gone through the roof in the last couple of years, materials especially. And the issue we're dealing with as far as seating capacity is that we have, before the pandemic, we were exceeding what's called the 80-20 rule. These seats were full, and then we had overflow. But the 80-20 rule is that if you get more than 80% occupancy, people kind of say, well, I don't go there anymore because it's, Yogi Berra said, I don't go to that restaurant anymore because it's too busy. Or nobody goes to that restaurant anymore because it's too busy. So we still have that issue to deal with. And I believe that our attendance is going to come back, and we want our expanded capacity is like 35 or 40. But that's not our biggest need. I mean, it's one of our it's up there. But we have hospitality issues downstairs. If you were at potluck today, it's not a good situation.
so is the architectural plan changing due to the changes in need? Is that?
Yes, so that's a good point, Jason. Yeah, at this point we don't have a plan, and what the committee, I think, has come to a realization over discussion over the past 8 to 12 months has been we've raised almost $600,000 for a project, but we really don't know what that project should look like. We have some ideas of what needs are, what we'd like to see happen, but the reality has shifted. And what our needs are today might be different, in fact, are different from 4 years ago when we started down this path. And so what the committee has said to this architecture firm that we're recommending that we hire for the feasibility study is to not be grounded in what our previous discussions have been, but let's take a fresh look at this from what our current perspective is, our current reality is. Let's see what the options are. What are options for a smaller project potentially than what was earlier envisioned? What might a 2-phase project look like, where we tackle a smaller portion today, well, not today, but more immediately, that then sets us up to then accomplish some of the other things we'd like to accomplish down the road with a second phase. So really at this point, what our committee is saying, we've raised almost $600,000. We need to take a look at what we could accomplish. What our needs are, how we can facilitate that, and before we can begin moving down that path, we need some expert guidance. We need the feasibility study. We need an architect that can work with us, and so this would allow us to take one more baby step in the direction of pursuing this project.
I have been saying for about 20 years, I want this addition done so that I can have an elevator when I need one. And we can't get people from upstairs to downstairs unless we put them in a car and drive them around. We don't have all these handicapped parking spots out here. They don't meet code. They're sloped down. We need to be able to handicap parking out here, come in, get on the elevator, come upstairs.
Yeah, I think maybe I could answer it. You're right. If all we're going to do is add an elevator, we don't need to do a feasibility study. But we would need to do a feasibility study for any expanding of the footprint of our building. And so the feasibility study allows us to see what our options are for expanding the footprint of the building, and then begin working with an architect of what some options might be for that. So at this point, yes, the committee is looking at more than just adding an elevator. We are looking at the possibility, the potential of expanding the footprint of our existing building. Yeah, Chuck just mentioned our kitchen. A lot of this is focused around our hospitality, our fellowship space, and being able to expand that. But then again, we're really at an early stage here. And we sense as a committee the need for working with an architect to explore what options are. And the first step in doing that is the feasibility study. Any other questions? Yes, Noel.
Not necessarily a question, just more of a comment. Is that, you know, as these funds have been raised, I think the wise thing for us to do, and I think the recommendation is what's being brought to the table, is bringing in expertise that can say, are we going to be spending the money that we have properly and correctly? And I think that's the point that I'm understanding we're getting to this point. And I think that as a good stewards, that's even though it seems like a lot, 14,000, but in the scheme of things, of all of the things that could go wrong, I think would be money well spent. And you know, I think I'm in support of moving forward with that piece as well.
Thank you for that. Anything else, Chuck, that you feel we need to mention? So again, here we are. We made a commitment as a church a number of years ago. This was the direction we wanted to go. We recognize things have changed. But we still, through the generosity of our church family, we have almost $600,000 for this project. And so our committee is recommending, let's take the steps we need to take to see what we would need to do to move forward with this. Again, to really have a sense of what a project budget might be, we need to work with an architect, we need to have the feasibility study. And so that's the recommendation coming to our church family to this evening, is that we move forward with hiring Carmi Design Group to do the feasibility study. And as we move forward, this will be a project that happens with the guidance of our church family. And so at each stage of this process, we would be coming back together in a business meeting to discuss what recommendations are, and as a church family, make that decision. Do we want to move forward? Are we willing to take this project on? Do we feel it's wise? Is it going to support the mission of our church? And those will be conversations that we can look forward to having together as we move forward. So this comes as a recommendation from our Cornerstone More Than Bricks Committee. And I'd be happy to entertain a motion if there's someone that feels that this is a positive recommendation. I see a motion in a second. Any additional comments or questions? And again, we're only voting on hiring Carmi Design Group to do the feasibility study. Okay, all those in favor, an indication of support, a raised hand. Any opposed? Okay, that is carried. I see Sebastian with both arms up back there, but I'm thinking maybe that's not in relation to the motion. Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate you helping walk us through that. And thank you to each one of you for your comments and questions. That's really vital and important. There is a collective wisdom that comes as we gather together, and your input and your questions are vitally important. You know, as we conclude, I want to highlight for you just a few ways that we're excited about reaching our community and sharing Jesus' love in our community. Over the second half of March and April and May, the focus of our church theme will be on share. We've looked at read God's word every day. We're focused on praying every day. And then we'll focus on sharing. How can we effectively share Christ in our community? And it's wonderful that that's already happening now. I'm looking forward when the weather warms. It's actually warm right now, but when it is supposed to be warming up and we begin our Feeding America partnership again with distributing groceries free to people in our community. Community Services remains active in supporting Eleanor's Pantry and other organizations in our community that are providing real help to people with real needs in our community. Neighbor to Neighbor is an organization we're partnered with in Berrien Springs, and so we're supporting reaching out in our community in very practical ways. We're also excited about how we can share Christ in action and also share him through biblical teaching. And in October 2nd, our conference will be launching a conference-wide minister or evangelistic outreach project, Discovering Revelation. And our church board is having conversations about how we can be part of that by hosting an evangelistic series here at our church and reaching out to our community in a proclamation series of sharing Christ's love. We're partnering with Voice of Prophecy and Sean Boonstra. We just say we're partnering with Sean Boonstra, but you're going to get a different Sean, not Sean Boonstra. But it's a Voice of Prophecy series that our conference is engaged in, and we can tap into some of that synergy. So that's one of the ways. We're looking at some literature distribution in our community of sharing messages in print that answer the questions and meet the needs that people in our community have. And as we move forward, we want ideas. And so I would challenge you, as you're downstairs enjoying your mystery dinner, to think a little bit about, maybe even talk with your partners or your neighbors at your table about what are some ways that we can reach out and share Jesus, his love in action, and his teachings through biblical teaching, how we can share that effectively in our community. And those are conversations we'll have more opportunities to have in the weeks and months to come. So let's keep in mind October, that's a number of months away, but the potential for an evangelistic series and other ways as we look at sharing during the months of March, April, and May during our thematic focus. I want to thank each one of you for being here this evening. Thank you for your participation and involvement. And it comes the time when, sadly, all good things must come to an end. Not all good things, but this good thing must come to an end. And I'd be happy to have a motion that we adjourn our business meeting. We got a motion and a second, and all those in favor? Okay, and I always say any opposed, and you all are such an agreeable bunch. There's no opposition. Let's close with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege of belonging to you and being part of a family of faith. We ask that you would continue to guide us as we seek to be a light, sharing your love in our community. And now as we transition to a time of socializing as a church family, we ask that you would continue to bless. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, thank you all for being here. I want to encourage you to make your way downstairs for our mystery dinner.